Shalom, everyone. It's June the 20th, Monday, June 20th. We are talking about Parshat Shlach Lecha. Parshat Shlach Lecha, we could say this is really the turning point of the whole story of Israel in the desert. Because it is at this point, as we know, because of the debacle of the spies, they're called the spies, the scouts, the messengers, that Israel will remain in the desert for 40 years. And because of that, everything changes. Everything will change. And there's so many questions that we can raise about the Parsha. And I'm going to focus in on a specific question, which is, why does Moses send the spies to begin with? But before we get to that central question, we really got to look at the text. And so with no further ado, I'm going to go to the text here. Here we go. All right. I always have to cue it up better. Okay. So our text is as follows. Vaydaber Adonai el Moshe lemor. God spoke to Moses saying, Shelach lecha anashim v'yaturu et eretz Canaan. Send for yourself men, asher ani noten livnei Yisrael, that they may scout the land of Canaan that I am giving to the children of Israel. Ish echad lemate avotav tishlachu kol nasivahem. One man per tribe of their fathers. You are to send each one a leader among them. Now, I've used the Everett Fox translation here. It's such a lovely translation when you want to get the sense of the cadence and the rhythm of the Hebrew in the English. I just want to point out the words shelach lecha, the send for yourself. It reminds us a lot of, it's a form of the imperative. There aren't too many of these. They happen to most of them happen to rhyme with shlach. There's kach lecha and brach lecha and shlach lecha. There's also lech lecha. Kach lecha means take for yourself. Brach lecha means escape for yourself. Lech lecha, which is admittedly the most famous one, which is go for yourself or go to yourself. So shlach lecha, and I've interpreted lech lecha as go by yourself. And when you go back to chapter 12 in the book of Genesis, when God says to Abraham lech lecha, there is really a sense that you got to do this on your own. If I might apply that here, it's God saying to Moses, do yourself a favor, send for yourself men. Okay, shlach lecha anashim. And I'm going to start off with that as an interpretation that this is God saying to Moses, do it for yourself. You're going to need this, okay? Which almost undermines the end of the story, which is that we of course we know how the story turns out. It ends up being everything but for Moses. It's against Moses, okay? What ends up happening, the end of the story, the spies give a terrible report, and it undermines Moses's leadership and really sets off a chain of events that's terrible. It opens up a whole range of theological questions, which is, did God know what he was doing here? And why? And then when we get the reiteration of the story in the book of Deuteronomy, it's told in a completely different way. It's the people approach Moses and ask Moses to send them spies to get a reconnaissance, basically. Okay, so already from the beginning we have this question, okay, a sense of questions. But I want to just give you more of the flavor of the text, and we'll come back to that midway here. So Moses sent them from the wilderness of Paran. Vayishlach otam Moshe mibar Paran al pi Adonai. Kulam anashim rashei v'nei Yisrael hema. All of the men of standing, heads of the children of Israel, were they. In other words, the people that Moses chose, or was going to choose, were people of influence. They were like the YouTubers, the influencers of their time. Okay? Ve'ele shmotam, and it's worth it to read their names. Lemate Ruven Shamua ben Zakur, Lemate Shimon Shafat ben Chorin, Lemate Yehuda Kalev ben Yifneh, Lemate Yisachar, and on and on and on. We get the names of the various leaders, and the Midrash will make puns on their names, that their names may in fact reflect some of their duplicitous and rather sinful nature. Okay, we won't go into that. All right, you get all the different scouts. Important to know that there are two scouts that are important. Lemate Ephraim Hoshea ben Nun, and Lemate Yehuda Kalev ben Yefuneh. The Judah scout and the Ephraim scout, 2 out of the 12 are the ones that will eventually give the more positive report about the land. And then it concludes, Ele Shmot HaNashim Asher Shalach Moshe Latur et Haaretz. These are the names of the men who Moshe sent out to scout the land. Vayikra Moshe Hoshea ben Nun Yoshua. And Moses had his own name for Hoshea ben Nun. He called him Yoshua. Why that is, it's a different story. We're not going to go there. And now here's the core. Vayishlach otam Moshe Latur et Eretz Canaan. He sends them out to scout the land of Canaan. Vayomer alehem, aluzeh banegev, valitem et har. Go out to the land of Canaan. Go to the, I don't have it lined up here properly. Aluzeh banegev, valitem bahar. Go to the parched land and go up to the highlands. Uritem et haaretz mahi. See the land, what it is like. Ve'eta'am hayoshev aleha. Hechazak hu harafeh, hama'at hu imrav. The population that settled on it, whether they are strong or weak, whether they are few or many. Umaha aretz. And what the land is like where they are settled. Umaha aretz asher hu yoshev ba. Hatova hi imra'a. Whether it is good or ill. Umaha he'arim. What are the towns like? Asher hu yoshev bahena, where they're settled in. Ha b'machanim im b'mivtzarim, whether they're encampments or fortified places. Umaha aretz hashmenahi im razah. What is the land like, whether it is fat or lean, whether there are trees in it or not. V'itchazaktem, you should exert yourselves. Ulakachtem mipriyars, take some fruit of the land. Vayamim yemei bikurei anavim. And these were the days of the first ripe grapes. Okay, so I luxuriated in this text. It's such a lovely text. I'm going to stop sharing for a second. We'll go into it in a second. It's Moses is, you have to the picture it. It's I'm going to use theatrical ideas here, that Moses is speaking to a group of people. He has selected them. He has selected them for himself. It's personal. He's made a personal appeal to each one, which I guess is a great, political move, right? That he is not delegated anyone to do the solicitation from anyone else. He has asked them personally, and it's always important when the leader has an important task that the leader asks that person directly. And so here they are. And so they should all be honored as influential members of their tribes, as relevant people, anashim, of people of a certain kind of stature in their communities. They're not like elders. They're obviously capable enough, probably, young-ish, not teens, but not elders. They're able to endure and defend themselves, and sustain themselves on a 40-day journey, or on a journey that would, in the end, last a length of time. They're resourceful people. Okay? Any comments to begin with on that? Because we're going to look at that text in a little bit of depth right now. Okay, here we go. So as usual, I like to explore the way a text works. The text works. I call this explication du texte. Okay, very, very important. So this is what Moses says to the people, and I have the Hebrew. I don't have the English translation here, but you'll see it here. Vayishlach otam Moshe, Moses sends them latur et Eretz Canaan, to tour the land of Canaan. He says, so I'm focused. I put the statement in larger type, and I put the narrative in smaller type. At the end, Vayamim Yemei Bikurim, that is and the season that he sent them was the season of the harvest of the grapes. Okay. So this is the content of what he says. I'm going to let it fill the screen so we can see. I happen to think it's a gorgeous, gorgeous text in lots of poetical ways. Okay. Alu ze banegev. So I made the blue highlight here, the verbs. Okay, and the verb alu means you go up. Alitem, you go up. Uritem, you see. V'itchazaktem, at the end, you be strong. Ulekachtem, and you take. Okay? So he's saying, go up, see, and then the content of what is you're going to see is the center. And at the end, it's be strong and grab some fruit. Take what you want. Okay? And so now that's the encapsulation. It's such a great text because it's got, good covering to it, a good package, right? So now he says as follows, and I've put in green highlight the references to that which they shall see. What are you going to see? Uritem. So uritem means see this, examine, explore, discover, and in green I have highlighted what are you going to discover? Haaretz, mahi, haaretz, the land, ha'ab, the people, haaretz, the land, he'arim, the cities or villages, haaretz, the land. So you have a kind of repetition here, the land, the people, the land, the cities, the land. It's kind of I'm going to say for all intents and purposes that the people and the cities, the cities constitutes a kind of a specificity of the people, and it's a kind of A pattern. Land, people, land, cities, land. Okay? A. Okay? And then it's what are the qualities? What are the different things? So that I've put in yellow. These are the different adjectives or the different characteristics or the different attributes that you are to look for. Okay? Hechazak, strong. Is it strong or is it weak? Hame'at, are they few or are they many? Hatova, is it good or is it bad? Ha-b'machanim, are they in camps? Im b'mivtzarim, are they in fortresses? Hashmeina, is it fat? Im raza, is it skinny? Hayesh ba'etz, are there trees? Im ayin, or none. Okay? And I think I'm deliberately pushing the point here of making this into a more playful set of antonymic parallels, like opposites, parallels of strong, weak, few, many, good, bad, camps, fortresses, fat, skinny, trees, barren, okay? All of that should give you a picture. In fact, it gives us all a kind of picture. If we were to extrapolate this into our own, whenever we take a tour, okay? Whenever we go to a new place, let's say you go to a piece of, a new country or a place that you've never traveled, there are things that you look for. There are things that, and of course, the things that you are going to find, are idiosyncratic. They are related to your own kinds of interests. For example, some people are interested in the food. Some people are interested in the scenery. Some people are interested in the people. Some people are interested in the architecture and the art and the culture and all that. We as tourists go to different places with our own unique set of agenda, the things that we want. But here they're going with a specific set, and I find it very interesting that there are, if you count them, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, that there are 12 different characteristics here. I know that I get criticized a lot for doing this kind of analysis, but people think that I'm stretching things a little bit, but I'm entitled. So there are 12 of these different characteristics. And I think look, at the very least, it's cute. Cute in the sense that there are 12 spies and there are 12 characteristics that they're to look at. And that subliminally in the content of what Moses is saying is, look, there's something for everybody here, okay? I want, you could be, everybody could look at everything, obviously. But you know what? You have the choice among you to distribute the characteristics among yourselves and look at this, or to look at everything. And that what I'm inviting you to do, okay? And I'm really making this into I'm pushing the case hard. I'm inviting you to have your own conversation. I'm giving you the talking points. I'm giving you what to see, so that when you come, I'm preparing you for that. When you come back, you will give the report that I want. I want you to give a good report. And what is the key to that? How does the text convey that I want you to give us a good report? Well, you've studied with me already for a long time now, and you know that my little shtick is, what's the center of the text? Whenever there's, it doesn't work all the time. It only works when I see that it works. Okay? If you count the words of this text, there are 45 words. Okay? It just so happens that the top 22 words end at ba, and the bottom 22 words start at he. So word 23, which is the center of the text, is hatova. And your biblical ears should be ringing here, because the term haaretz hatova is a great biblical term. We'll talk about that in a second, okay? But what he's saying what he's saying directly is, gentlemen, I have a job for you. Gentlemen, this is what you're going to do. I want you to go out and see the land. You are influential people. You are great men in your tribes, okay? Go see the land, really, take a look at everything, but see that it's a good land, okay? That's what he's really saying. V'itchazaktem, and get strong. Ulakachtem mipri haaretz. And when this is all done, as you complete this journey, bring back samples of the fruit of the land. And you, of course, know the Carmel Wine Company, that insignia and the logo of the Ministry of Tourism of the State of Israel is exactly the carrying the big clump of grapes. Okay? So my thesis here is that there is something going on by the poetics of the text. It's a song, kind of a song, It has a motive to see, to explore, to discover. It's organized to confirm an essential characteristic of the land. It's goodness. Hatova hi. It's goodness, okay? That the whole song that Moses sings in poetic way, it's I want to say it's Lincoln-esque, or Lincoln was Moses-esque. Lincoln was very deliberate in the way he structured oratory, okay, and that you can, you can sense in the way that the words are conveyed, the song in the words, that there's a message, or maybe the greatest orators are able to do that. Think of Martin Luther King, of course, and that the oratory has a music to it, and the music conveys a message. In the Bible, I think I want to apply the musicality of this text. I want to conclude. I want to say from this that what's driving Moses at this moment that is hinged after a small crisis. We know that we just read the complaining about the food, but there's still a sense of excitement. We're going forward. Yeah, we have some setbacks. We had some setbacks with food and water, but we're still going forward. And here Moses is the leader, and he's saying, go, see the land, see its goodness, see what it is, see if it's good. And it's like, I know it's good, but I want you to see it for yourself, okay? So it's a song. There's, I think, joy in it, and it is organized to convey this essential goodness, okay? All right. Well, I want to just go focus, take a little digression here, because Moses, the idea of the good land is something that is really part and parcel of the Torah, and I think it's part of the entire Bible. And of course, we'll make a slight little tangent. It's part of modern Israeli culture, and
Nomi Shemer.
of course, I'll show you that in a second. Okay, so
before you say it,
go ahead.
I would like to just one.
Go ahead.
In ברכת המזון, נודה לך השם
Al
אלוקינו
Arta Tova.
על הארץ הטובה.
You're absolutely right.
I don't know if you were going to say it.
No, I in fact, you know what? I'm giving myself a punch in it because I didn't put that text in at such a great time. I should have used, both Mishnaic and also Talmudic and text from the liturgy. Okay, so these are, but I focused here on the biblical text. Look how the land is mentioned to Moses this is chapter 3, verse 8 in the book of Exodus, Shmot, when God appears to Moses the first time. And he says, so I have come down to rescue it from the hand of Egypt, to bring it up from that land to a land goodly and spacious. In Hebrew, Vayred latzilo miyad Mitzrayim, saving him from Egypt, ulhaloto min haaretz hahi. I'm going to bring Israel up from that land, el eretz tova urchava, to a good land, a wide land, spacious land. Eretz zavat chalav udvash, a land flowing with milk and honey. Makom Knaani, Achiti, Moria, Prizi, and land with other nations in it, but it's a good land. Now, skipping to Devarim, we have at least 4 or 5 texts in the book of Deuteronomy where it's referred to this. It's an admonition if they should get to see a single man of all these men of this evil generation, the good land that I swore. Pray, let me cross over that I may see the good land. Moses implores God. He wanted to see, this is in Deuteronomy when Moses already is banned from the land, and he implores God to get into Ha'aretz HaTovah. And then ואדוני התענף בי על דבריכם, וישבע לביתי אבריא את הירדנים ותלבו אל הארץ הטובה. The God incensed with me because of your words, and he swore not to let me cross the Jordan to enter the good land. And then again, you are crossing over and will take possession of the good land. V'yirshtem et haaretz hatova hazot. And then the classic phrasing of the description of the land in chapter 8 of the book of Deuteronomy. Ki Adonai Elohecha meviacha el eretz tova. God is bringing you into a good land, a land of streams and springs and ocean flows issuing from valleys and hills, and it goes on. Eretz chita sorah, eretz eternity, the land of wheat and barley and gefen v'rimon, gefen tema rimon, the vineyards and figs and pomegranates, zeit shemen udvash, right? The land of oil and honey, that is date honey. When I interpret that, I always go like, it's the land of the commodities and the land of the fruit and the land of the luxuries, okay? Your staples, wheat and barley, the fruits that make life so pleasant, and the luxury items, which are olive oil and the date honey. And people may debate whether or not they're luxurious items. The olive crop is a very important crop in Israel, and of course the olives were used for oil and also for fuel, not necessarily edible, but besides that, it's only edible, I should say. We now, of course, associate olive oil with a luxury. Okay, maybe it was then too. All right, and of course you mentioned that, Susie. So what I would say is here she says it. I'm going to make it smaller so that it can get the whole thing. Naomi Shemer was, I would say, probably the greatest songwriter of the last generation in Israel, and certainly was the songwriter who best and most effectively created the internal character of Israel. And, many songwriters, of course, can compete for that category, but her songs almost became quasi-anthems. You think of Yerushalayim Shel Zahav as the unofficial anthem of Israel, and so many of her songs have that quality, including this one, which everyone knows, Al Kolele, right? Al Advash V'Al Oketz, Al Amar V'Amatok, Abitenu Atinoket Shmoredi Hatov, Al Eisha Mevoeret, Al Amayim Azakim, Al Eisha Shava Baita Min Amir. It's a song of longing, telling us about the honey and the sting, the bitter and the sweet, our little girl, and it's a prayer. It's a prayerful song. God guard us. God protect us. For all these things, right? Al kol ele, shmor na li eli hatov. For everything, protect me, my good God. Al advash ve'ala okes al amar ve'amatok. For the honey and the sting, and for the bitter and the sweet. Al nata'a kor natua. Do not uproot that which is planted. Al tishkach et hatikva. Do not forget the hope. Hashiveni v'ashuva. Bring me back, and I will return. El haaretz hatova, to the good land. And she, of course, is playing on the biblicality of that phrase. I have no doubt of it. I mean, I don't know how well versed she was in the Bible, but everybody, the songwriters had to know these things, and it's just part of the language. I don't know if you can comment on that, and I'm sure there are other examples. They didn't occur to me, off in the same way that this one, but I'm sure there are other songs that have the phrase ha'aretz hatova or eretz hatova. There are, of course, so many songs praising the land, and of course, it's part of the Israeli character to talk about the good land and talk about the beautiful land. You can almost see this almost daily on the Israeli newscasts, right? Medinaya Fashalana, Eretz Fashalana, our beautiful land, Eretz Tova Shalana, our beautiful, gorgeous, good land. Okay, and having just been there, it's of course it's beautiful. Well, what's not to love? You got everything in Israel. You even have snow, right? You even have skiing. Okay, and of course, the geographic variety, the biological variety. I mean, these things were understood by our ancestors in their way. We can of course, we have the nomenclature for that. And we have a different kind of scientific knowledge for it. But even if you look at the geology, of the land, it's quite unique and it's quite interesting. The fact that you can go from the lowest point on Earth in the Dead Sea to rather high, but not super high elevations, and the fact that you have streams and all sorts of different kind of microclimates makes for a very, very interesting geography. Okay, I'll stop there if you have any comments here. So my point here in saying this is that Moses is directing the people, the spies itself, to see good things, even though he gives the possibility that there are negative things. Is it good? Is it bad? Is it strong? Is it weak? It's a song. The song has joy, and in the sense of it, there is a sense of, you guys, you are my public relations arm, and you are the influencers. I want you to have legitimacy in your report. I don't want you to bring fake news. I want you to bring real news to the people. I want you to bring your direct experience, and that will enhance your authenticity in delivering the report. Okay? Any comments or reactions?
Rabbi,
Yeah.
did Moshe make a mistake? And why I say that is, yeah, he took people from the tribes.
Yes.
But did they have any idea what they were looking at? There were only two that had an idea of what they were looking at. The others did not.
This is why the story is such a powerful story, is because at least I'm framing the story in the best possible way, which is that there's optimism, and that in the optimism of
Rabbi, don't put it in the best possible way. Put it in reality.
Well, the reality is, of course, it's a catastrophe, right?
Yeah.
Moses doesn't want to.
And I think Moses screwed it up.
Okay, so I think the claim is a worthy claim, and it needs to be tested. I think I'm going to give you a point in the sense that it's a justifiable claim that Moses screwed up in terms of doing this. But again, part of the difficulty of the text is the question of, why does he send them, and does he send them out of his own volition, or does he send them because God sends, or does he send them as a response to the public desire for this kind of response? Okay, I don't want to relieve him of responsibility, but I don't want to blame him completely. But I'm going to turn to Gittel and then to Bob. Go ahead. And then
so when Moses sent them out, he gave them, you said, 12 items.
Yes.
But in reality, he gave them 6 that were pairs positive and negative pairs. And he always put the positive first. So he kind of cued them to what he hoped they would find, I think.
I agree. Okay, that's nice. As I said, I was being cute, in the sense of 12 things and 12 tribes, and it's nice to say that there's a different focus here. It's simply, the way he's speaking, and he is pushing them to the positive. I don't think that there can be any doubt about that. Bob, go ahead, and then Alana.
Yeah, I have another take that builds on the late Rabbi Jonathan Sachs's comments that Moses was testing the Meraglim in terms of whether they had a fixed mindset or a growth mindset. And the notion here is, how would they know what good means? What is fat? What is lean? What is many? What is few? And he's really testing their ability to go beyond what they've been doing up till now and seeing whether they can analyze things in a different way. So I'm not sure it's not really defined what those different polar opposites are. They're up to the imagination of the people talking about it. So how does one develop a growth mindset to see possibility?
Thank you, Bob.
Yeah, okay. So you're saying that there is a deficiency in these people based on, the fact that they had nothing, they had no frame of reference, they had no way of understanding, and look, there's a strong case to be made for that interpretation, that this is all a test for them. And it comes at just a huge price, okay?
Yeah.
And living inside this text, I wanna be there with Moses. I wanna kind of dive into this situation with a degree of empathy that there is no enmity or there's no need for that, and that there's just a simple excitement, but your comment is actually buttressed by some of the commentaries, the Midrash, and also Rashi, which we're going to look at in a second.
Right.
So they have
one quick thing further.
Yeah.
Rather than a deficiency, what I remember reading is that they were so ensconced in Torah study and other sorts of things that the question is, could they get their heads out of that and apply it to the land and challenge the world with that stuff? So that's why I see it as a testing thing, less a deficiency, but sort of a growth process.
Sure. Okay. That's, there's a certain mythological element to that. Ilana, go ahead. You're ready.
I'm trying to focus on the words, 2 words. Shlach lecha, send. Lecha is to you.
Yes.
But send for you, for your own satisfaction, for your own information, which means that I think God understood that Moses needs to send the spies, which was necessary. So shlach lecha. It could have said just shlach, just send, but for you, for your own, your responsibility, for your own necessity. Also, veyaturu et haaretz. Why didn't it say shlach lecha meraglim leragel, to spy the land? Veyaturu is like tourist. A little lighter than spies.
So both are great points, and I agree with you in the first point that there's something very personal about this, and you'll see Rashi will try to answer that question in a second. And as to the term latour, as you know, the term is very different from leragel. So latour is, and I'm going to send you a link to Benny Lau's lecture on this Parsha, because he talks about this exactly, this that they're not, the tradition calls them the Meraglim, but nowhere in the text do you have the word Meraglim, which is spies. They're basically people that are scouting, or that they're, we say, the modern word tayar is a tourist, okay? There's no such thing as tourism in antiquity. But latour is to wander, or to see, or to go from place to place. At the end of this parsha, it says, "V'lo taturu acharei levavchem v'acharei nechem." Do not be led astray. So there's a sense that in this you are going and leading and bringing people to a different destination. That's what latour is, I think. Yeah. Ruth.
Okay, well, in the text it says, Pshat, it said that God sent out the spies, but the Midrash says, clearly God does not need spies. He already knows what's there, that the people pressured Moshe to send out spies. So God acquiesced to make the people happy, just like, they didn't need kings, but they let them have kings. And as far as the report, we haven't gotten that far in the text. It's like rock rega. The unanimity of the goodness of the land continues for a while. They all agree that it's a good land. They all think that it's fat and not skinny, and trees are not barren. And, the machloket doesn't happen until they talk about the inhabitants of the land, and we can't overcome them. But even the spies who gave the bad report admit that this is a great place. It's just that we're going to have a hard time conquering it. So
right, okay, and that becomes the breaker, right? The thing that will break their morale, which is that the land is beautiful land, but there are Nephilim, there are giants, there are Amalek, there are mythological enemies, there are arch enemies, and that scares the daylights out of Israel. John, you have what to say. Go ahead.
Maybe we're being too hard on these people, saying that they had a failure of perception. Just think where they had been. They were slaves in Egypt. People probably still had a lot of the old, sickness, the Egyptian sickness. They were not strong people. So I think we're being a little too hard on them.
So you won't find disagreement in me on that. That part of the story here is that there's that slave mentality is still there, and that they're being asked to do something that they may not be psychologically capable of. And that is, the people is being asked to believe and to follow and to build when they've had all of their needs met, albeit at the price of their freedom. And so what you get here is it's a story about, because we're not going to get to the crisis where they say, let's go back to Egypt. Why'd you take us out here? Why is it, we had all of our needs met, and here we're going to die. The people are not ready, and this is the great disappointment of this generation. It's the great truth, though, of the Bible. It's why the Bible, the Torah, is speaking and relating a truth that I think is understood, which is the revolution is the easy part, the living and the getting to the destination is the hard part, right? And I mentioned it last week in Shul, and this is the theme. The theme is you can break through with enough muster and a little bit of luck, but what happens on the other side is the more challenging thing. Jonathan Sachs makes these statements in many of his essays, so yeah, we need to be a little bit more empathetic to their problem. Let's go now into some of the commentaries here, specifically between. I'm just going to before we get to it's. These are things that does Moses really need to send them out? He knows already that the land is good. Already we saw this verse, right? When God first appeared to him at the bush, he said, I've come to rescue them from the Egyptians and to bring them out to a land, a good and spacious land. So Moses already has an idea that the land is good. And again, in Exodus 6, when God says, I'm going to take I will maintain my covenant. This is the text, which is the four terms at the beginning of Parshat Va'era. I appeared to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob at El Shaddai. I also established my covenant with them to give them the land of Canaan, the land in which they lived as sojourners, which means that there are at least two essential things that Moses knows about the land. One is that it's a good land, and the other thing is the ancestral land, that it's a land that has a narrative, a story to it, that it's the land where they were formed, that they're the land of their fathers, the land of their ancestors, the land where if you go to it, you will see the place where they sold Joseph, where Abraham, put Isaac on the altar, where Jacob, had the vision and the dream, and all of that, all of the stories that were formative in the people's backstory. The covenant, the original covenant, is in the land. After all, what's the point? When God says to Abraham again, Lech lecha me'artzecha me'moladecha beit avicha, go from your land, your birthplace, your father's household, to the land that I will show you. The whole idea is that you will be planted on a land, and there you will create a people. And so here the people is formed, and now they're coming back to the land. And that's the central. So it's a good land in the center. So here's Rashi. Rashi says, and he answers the question that we all read, Shlach lecha lida'atcha, right? For your own judgment, according to your own judgment, or lida'atcha, according to your opinion, or according, for the sake of your knowledge. Ani eni mitzaveh lecha. I'm not commanding it to you. Im tirtzeh, shlach. But if you want, shlach lecha. Do it for yourself. Lefi sheba'u Yisrael v'amru. And here Rashi is kind of collating the other account of this in the book of Deuteronomy, in which the spies is a response to a delegation of Israelites who says, we want you to send people into the land to check it out, okay? And then Moshe, after the delegation approaches Moses took counsel with the Shekhinah, he took counsel with God, whereupon God said to them, I have told them long ago that the land is good. I already told you that, but you're gonna go and b'chayehem, by their lives. Shani noten lehem makom litot b'divrei hameraglim. In other words, this is kind of like what Skip was saying, and others, that this is a test. I'm going to give them now an opportunity to fall into error through the statements of the spies. In other words, and this is very difficult to read in this, and in Rabbi Benny Lau's word, he says, this is cruel. It's a cruel way it's a setup for failure, right? He is saying that and I have to appreciate this because it's such a darker reading of the text. The darker reading of the text is, I know what's going to happen. I know these people, and I know they're going to fail. And the only way that the story can work is if there's failure, because the failure will necessitate a kind of reset. They need to be forgiven. And then in the process of me, God, trying to destroy them or to punish them, Moses intercedes and says, "Forgive them. You're not a cruel God," and God forgives them. And from this we get the words, "Vayomer Adonai salachti kidvarecha." I have forgiven them according to what you have asked me. And those words get kind of emblazoned into the whole liturgy of the Jewish people, right? That is, when we Yom Kippur, we stand up and Kol Nidre and recite the Kol Nidre and we recite those words. Vayomer Adonai salachti kidvarecha. Vayomer Adonai salachti kidvarecha. Vayomer Adonai salachti. And it's God. We recite that 3 times because we're invoking a moment when God forgives the people. And so Rashi is, I can't help but say it's a darker reading of it, that the story hinges on failure, and the failure requires the recovery. Otherwise, there's no people, right? And that, of course, is what happens. But it's a cruel way to look at this, okay? And we have to struggle with this. As opposed to that, you have Nachmanides, who says as follows. He quotes Rashi, and then he challenges Rashi. He says, "V'yesh kan lishol im ken Moshe atzmo chata." Here one may ask, if this is so, then Moses himself sinned in this matter. Moses is culpable. Moses is liable because Moses set them up, right? Because Moses said, "This thing pleased me," back in Dvarim. When he recounts this, he's saying, you approached me, I said yes, and I was happy that you asked me, and I too was in on it for failure. But that doesn't make sense. Furthermore, why did he tell the spies to find out about the land, whether it is good or bad, since he had already been told at the beginning that it is a good land? Moreover, what did the spies do wrong, since Moses told them, "And see the land what it is, da-da-da-da"? And at the least, they had to give him an answer to the questions that they commanded them. In other words, he's saying, what's the problem here, right? This is not about failure. What was their sin? They just did what Moses asked them. Did he send them out on the understanding that they would give a false report? Was Moses actually setting them up for failure? That's nonsense. Moreover, what reason was there for Moses, our teacher, to send this mission? If they would report that the land is good and its inhabitants are weak, well and good. But if they would say it is bad, or that the people are strong, would it enter his mind to take them back to Egypt? There is no way he was going to take them back to Egypt. But the explanation of the subject is as follows. The Israelites wanted to act in the way that all those who had come to wage war in a foreign country do, namely, to send out men to become acquainted with the roads and entrances to the cities, so that when they return from their mission, the scouts will go at the head of the army to show them the way in a similar manner to that which it says, "Show us, we pray thee, the entrance into the city." Thus the Israelites wanted the reconnaissance party to advise them which city they should attack first, and from which direction it would be easy to capture the land. This is what they said explicitly. In other words, it's a mission. It's a reconnaissance mission. And the reconnaissance mission requires them collecting information for the sake of their knowledge militarily, strategically, geographically, to how to enter the land and how to take advantage of the weakest spots of the enemy so that they would be able to conquer and subsequently occupy the land. That's what happens in warfare from ancient times right up until today. Okay, how you win a war is by having as much intelligence as possible, knowing enough about the enemy and where to attack the enemy. Okay, why is it that the Ukrainians have been able to kill 50 or something Russian generals? Somehow they're getting the information of where these generals are, in addition to the fact that they're speaking on their own telephones or cell phones, and not evading, very rudimentary forms of surveillance. But the point is that intelligence will win war. Why is it that in 67 Israel was able to conquer the Golan Heights? Because they knew where all the fortresses were. They knew where most of the bunkers were, the Syrian, because of Eli Cohen, and on. It goes in terms of reconnaissance. Of course, failures in war are also failures of intelligence. Okay, so he says as follows: it was a mission to gain knowledge. Furthermore, it is possible that it was because Moses knew that it is a fertile and good land, as he was told, unto a good land and a large one, to a land of flowing milk and honey, that he told them to set their minds ascertaining this fact, so that upon their return they would tell the people about it, and they would rejoice and gain renewed strength to go up there in joy. Therefore he told them, be of good courage, v'itchazaktem, and bring the fruit of the land, so that the people would see with their own eyes the goodness of the land. However, since the Israelites in Egypt were slaves doing most rigorous work, they did not know, neither did they understand the nature of the land. Therefore Moses wanted the spies to tell them all the particulars of the land in order to cause them to rejoice in its qualities, since he himself knew them, as explained above. In other words, and again, we've touched on all of these. It's interesting that in the conversation before, we had a lot of these ideas, which is that what can you expect of them? They're slaves. They really don't know. And I'm saying that, I'm basing a lot of my comments on this commentary by Nachmanides, and of course by the comments of Rabbi Ben Elau in his take on it, which is the Hebrew lecture I made reference to before, which is that there's a sense here he wants to share the joy of the land, and he wants to create and augment the force of public opinion to support the project by enlisting the 12 spies who are going to become the public relations agents in conveying to the people the necessity of the land, the greatness of the land, and the ability to, in fact, conquer and occupy the land and possess the land. The two that are left with the positive, Yoshua and Caleb, say, La yachol nuchal, we can do it. It's too late when they say it. The die is already cast, but they are trying to put the best foot forward on it. They're trying to give it the best spin as possible, and of course 2 verses 10 will not create the public opinion. They're the minority, and they lose, and it becomes a catastrophe. Okay, so that's where our comment concludes. Rashi wants to set. He's saying that it's really a darker view of this. That the picture of the Torah is, that there's a they don't have faith. These people don't have faith, and there's still a necessity to shake out the slave mentality. And Ramban, Nachmanides, the whole project is to boost their enthusiasm, to get into the land, so that they will become effective advocates for it. What in the end is they have a confirmation bias. I want to just stop here, and I just want to I know we're over, but I want to take a second to show you this video here. Sorry about this. This will be our last thing here. Here we go.
Confirmation bias. Confirmation bias is the tendency of people's minds to seek out information that supports the views they already hold. It also leads people to interpret evidence in ways that support their pre-existing beliefs, expectations, or hypotheses. People easily accept new information that is consistent with their beliefs. but are skeptical of information that contradicts their beliefs. In one study, teachers were told that certain students were especially promising, even though the students were really chosen at random. Based on this false belief, teachers gave more praise and attention to the chosen students, who improved more because of the teacher's expectations. In other words, the confirmation bias can create self-fulfilling prophecies. In fact, this bias often helps people prove themselves right. For example, when physicians have an idea about a patient's diagnosis, they may focus on evidence that supports their theory, while they undervalue evidence that supports an equally plausible alternative diagnosis. Likewise, police officers who adhere to stereotypes linking young Black men to crime may gather and process clues in a one-sided way when investigating a crime with a Black suspect. As Nobel Prize winner Daniel Kahneman warns, even scientists who commit to a theory tend to disregard inconsistent facts, concluding that the facts are wrong, not the theory. So, the confirmation bias can easily lead us to reach inaccurate and even unethical conclusions. It's essential to recognize our vulnerability to confirmation bias and actively guard against it by being open to evidence that is not consistent with our beliefs and theories.
I think that's a fascinating, it may be slightly extrapolated from this, but one could argue and even debate, were the spies, did the spies have a confirmation bias regarding the land? And if so, what is the root of that? And so I would argue, going forward, that the confirmation bias, if it in fact exists here, is rooted in their feeling of in their leader. It is a political bias, and the political bias against Moses is going to erupt already in the coming weeks with the rebellions, and this is at the heart of it. That the data, it seems, depending on the data is the land is a good land. It's productive. The frame that they put around it is that it's a mythological frame. The giants and arch enemies of Israel are there. We can't get through there. We're never going to succeed. And so that dooms them to failure. Anyway, you'll have that to think about. I know we have a couple of comments. We've got Steve and then Alana. Go ahead, and then there'll probably be others. Go ahead, Steve.
Oh, Rabbi, Moshe picks the spies or travelers, and he sends them out. And later on, when they come back, they report to all of Israel. Yeah. Moses made a serious executive error here. He should have had the spies report to him. And then in private, they could have decided what to do and what to tell the Israelites.
I agree with you. I think there are plenty of things to learn in terms of management. I've studied the story in the past where there's this tremendous sense of failure all around. There is some technical leadership failures here that happen with Moses, and you point to one of them. His reaction to this, I think, sets off another set of failures. Ilana, go ahead.
It's interesting to compare the text that we read today with the Haftarah in the book of Joshua. Yeah. How Joshua, who became the leader after Moses, he sends only 2 spies, and it says Anashim Meraglim. which maybe were more qualified or trained, like the Mossad or something. So he probably learned a little lessons from the previous experience. And so it's nice to see how it's done later after this adventure or whatever it's called.
I agree. It's interesting. I think that, in that case, of course, in the Joshua case, it's successful. The two spies scout out Jericho.
And who was the second one? Excuse me. So one was Caleb ben Efuneh, who was a good spy before.
Pinchas was the other one.
Okay.
Pinchas? Yeah. Okay.
Good. We'll have to look at the Chidon Tanakh question. Okay. Bob Like.
I know how much you like mystical interpretations, especially over a glass of wine.
I do.
That's right. So I think there's a comment that Joseph described the sons of his father as being spies. And so there's some commentary that these are reincarnated souls from that time period, for what that's worth.
Well, it's worth quite a bit in the sense, look, that we're always looking at the stories with these very deep layers and echoes, and it's hard not to see in the spies or the scouts an echo of their ancestors, that the brothers had a certain mean quality to them. Of course, Joshua, it wouldn't be lost on us to conclude that Joshua is a descendant of Ephraim, is from the Joseph tribe, and Caleb is the Judah tribe. So in the story of the brothers, the two personalities that are elevated among the others are Judah and Joseph, and of course, careful readers of the Bible will note that Judah goes on to become the powerful tribe of the monarchy, and Ephraim, Manasseh, Joseph, they are the powerful tribes of the northern kingdom, and that's the subtext of the Bible. The Bible is, until until we get into the land, and then the tribes form a confederacy, and then David is elected as the king, or David is anointed as king of the entire tribal federation of one nation. But then shortly, a few generations after David, the kingdom splits up into two kingdoms, and that's a great catastrophe. And so hovering in the earlier stories, of course, are the later stories, but that's a different class. All right. Well,
can I say something personal?
Go ahead.
When I when I applied to teaching in Solomon Schechter 25 years ago or so,
or more,
I did a lesson about the Meraglim for the principal Debbie Miller.
Yes.
To decide if I could get the position or not. So it was about this particular chapter,
wow.
The Meraglim.
And you got the job.
The children, I got the job. The children, 12 students were the Meraglim. Each of them had to report and add their opinion about the whole thing.
It's such it is a story that lends itself so well to the classroom because of all of the different conflicts there, and there's so many different pedagogical angles to it. I'm glad you mentioned that, Alana. As I mentioned, there's geography, there's this, there's so many things, and there's also the interpersonal relationships of the two, and how you shape a group, and what does it mean to be in the minority? What does it mean to stand up for your own ideas? These are really powerful questions from this text.
And
all right.
This is my bat mitzvah Parsha, so this is my favorite one. I know you're not supposed to have a favorite, but it's very fun to compare the. It's very fun to compare the two Meraglim stories. The this one and the Haftorah in Sefer Yehoshua. You can that would be right up your alley, Rabbi, because you can make two lists and this and you can compare point for point. It's great.
All right. Well, chazak, even though we didn't finish the Torah. Have a wonderful summer. Toda rabah.
Bye.
Such a pleasure.
Have a great summer, everybody.
Take care.
Rabbi, I want to ask you something privately
No problem. Okay.
for 2 minutes.